In a world of tweets, trades, and 24/7 news cycles, we've got the latest scoop. Recent polls show a surprising tilt. Voters are leaning towards Trump over Biden on economic performance. But why? Is it the job market boom, the stock surge, or something else entirely? Buckle up as we dive deep into the data. We're talking jobs, stocks, and everything in between. Under Trump, the S&P 500 saw a cumulative 68% gain, and inflation hovered around the Fed's sweet spot of 2%. Fast forward, and under Biden, we've hit a 40-year inflation high, yet the jobless rate is dancing below 4% for the longest stretch in over half a century. But wait, there's more. We're not just throwing numbers at you, we're breaking them down, making sense of the sense, and finding out what it all means for your financial future. So, are you ready to get the lowdown on the showdown between Trump and Biden's economic legacies? Let's get the facts straight. We're starting with the pulse of the nation, poll rankings. And folks, the numbers are speaking louder than campaign slogans. Recently, polls have been a roller coaster, and if you're feeling the ups and downs, you're not alone. In a head-to-head matchup, Trump is leading Biden in 5 key swing states. We're talking Arizona, Georgia, Michigan, Nevada, and Pennsylvania. These aren't just any states, but the battlegrounds that could swing an election. It seems the economy is front and center in voters' minds. In Arizona, Trump's ahead by 7 points. In Georgia, that lead stretches to 10. Michigan, 7 again. Nevada sees the biggest gap with 12 points, and Pennsylvania rounds it out with a 3-point lead for Trump. Now, why the preference for Trump? Well, it boils down to the economy, folks. Despite Biden's strong job market, inflation has been the thorn in his side, and it's the post-pandemic surge in prices that's got voters turning into Trump's frequency. In the April Bloomberg Morning Consult poll, a whopping 51% of respondents felt they were doing better financially under Trump compared to 32% under Biden. And when it comes to economic issues, the cost of everyday goods is not just a concern, it's the top concern. Under Trump, we saw tax cuts and stimulus checks that gave a short-term boost to many Americans' wallets. Biden, on the other hand, has been steering the ship through some choppy inflationary waters, and that's left some voters feeling seasick. But what about you? Are you Team Trump's tax cuts or Biden's job boom? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, and let's start this conversation. Now that we've seen how the polls are leaning, let's zoom out and look at the big picture. How do presidential policies shape our economy, not just today, but years down the line? I'll take Trump's tax cuts, for example. The tax cuts added trillions to the national debt, and economists are still debating whether the growth spurt was worth the aftermath. Then there's Biden. His policies have focused on infrastructure and clean energy, aiming for sustainable growth. But the question remains, will these investments pay off in the long run, or are we just planting seeds for the next generation to harvest? It's a complex dance of policy and patience. Trump's America First agenda promised immediate gains, while Biden's Build Back Better plan is playing the long game. And let's not forget, no president controls the economy single-handedly. They're at the mercy of global events, Congress, and yes, even the Federal Reserve. But here's the thing, the economy is like a garden. It needs the right conditions to flourish. Tax cuts, stimulus packages, trade deals, they're all tools in the gardener's shed. Use them wisely and you might just see growth. Misuse them and, well, it's weeds and pests for everyone. Coming up, we're putting disposable income under the microscope. How much cash are you really left with after Uncle Sam takes his cut? Stay tuned because we're about to find out. Hold on to your seats because we're just getting warmed up. If you're loving the economic deep dive so far, there's plenty more where that came from. We've got disposable income, inflation, and the S&P 500 showdown later in this episode. Next, let's talk about a term that's crucial to understanding the economy, cumulative disposable income, and we'll also compare how this key indicator fared upon 2 different U.S. presidencies. First off, what is cumulative disposable income? It's the total amount of money that people like you and me have left after paying our taxes. This is the cash we use to buy things, save up, or invest. It's a big deal because when we have more money in our pockets, we tend to spend more, and that's what keeps the economy buzzing. Now let's talk presidents. We've seen 2 very different approaches to the economy in recent years. Under President Trump, the focus was on tax cuts. Remember the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act of 2017? That was all about leaving more money in your pocket. Fast forward to President Biden's term. That strategy shifted towards direct relief, like those stimulus checks many received. That gave a temporary boost to our disposable income. But here's where it gets interesting. If we look at the numbers, real disposable personal income per capita actually grew under Biden, but not as fast as it did under Trump. And with inflation on the rise, the growth we're seeing now might not feel like much. Whether you're Team Trump or Team Biden, one thing's for sure, your wallet feels the impact of these decisions. We want to hear from you. How has your disposable income changed over the past few years? Have you felt the effects of these policies in your day-to-day life? Drop your experiences in the comments below. Imagine a world where everyone who wants a job has a job. Sounds ideal, right? But what happens when this dream falters? Let's kick things off with the basics. The unemployment rate is more than just a number. It's a snapshot of the economy's pulse. Here's how it's calculated. Unemployment rate equals total labor force number of unemployed people times 100. But what does a number like 3.9% for April 2024 tell us? Let's find out. A low unemployment rate generally signals a healthy economy. Businesses are booming and jobs are plentiful. But when the rate climbs, it's often a sign of trouble. High unemployment can mean economic distress, where jobs are scarce and people struggle to find work. The unemployment rate doesn't include those who've stopped looking for work out of discouragement or those underemployed. Now let's compare the presidential terms. During Trump's first 3 years, the unemployment rate averaged a solid 4%. That's like 4 out of every 100 people looking for work but not finding it. Not bad, right? It was a period of relative stability and growth. But then we hit the Biden years. The average unemployment rate nudged up slightly to 4.2%, including a few months when the job market was still recovering from the pandemic shakeup. So what's the story here? Well, under Trump, we saw low unemployment rates, a sign of a healthy job market. But don't count Biden out just yet. Despite a slight increase in the average rate, we've seen a resilient job market bouncing back from the pandemic's punch. Let's shift gears and talk about something that hits home for many of us, literally. We're zooming in on the average 30-year fixed mortgage rate and what it whispers about the economy's whispers and roars. The 30-year fixed mortgage rate is the interest rate you'd pay on a home loan over, you guessed it, 30 years. This rate is a cornerstone of the housing market, and it tells us a lot about economic health. When rates are low, people can borrow more cheaply, which heats up the housing market. But when they rise, well, it's like a cold shower on those home buying dreams. Under President Trump, the average 30-year fixed mortgage rate was like a gentle downhill slope, going from 4.09% to 2.77%. That's right, borrowing got cheaper and the American dream of home ownership got a little closer for many. Fast forward to the Biden era and the scenery changes. Rates have more than doubled since he took office, peaking at over 7.5%, a 22-year high. That's not just a hill, it's a mountain, and it's put a squeeze on home buyers and sellers alike. But what's behind this steep climb? It's a mix of factors: an economy bouncing back from the pandemic, inflationary pressures, and the Fed's rate hikes to keep that inflation in check. It's a delicate balance, and mortgage rates are feeling the gravity of it all. So what does this mean for you and me? If you're looking to buy, higher rates mean pricier loans and more cautious spending. If you're selling, well, it might be tougher to find buyers ready to climb that mortgage rate mountain. Have you felt the impact of these mortgage rate changes? Are you holding off on buying that dream home? Or maybe you've locked in a low rate and are sitting pretty? You can share your experience in the comments. Cumulative economic growth is the total increase in the value of goods and services produced by an economy over time. It's like the scorecard of a nation's economic health. A higher score means more wealth and prosperity for its people. It's the grand total of all economic activity that's happened under a president's watch. Under President Trump, the economy was on a growth spurt. If we set aside the pandemic year, growth after inflation averaged 2.67%. That's like a steady uphill hike with the economy expanding at a good clip. But then we turn the page to President Biden's chapter, and folks, it's been a page-turner. The American economy has been booming with a whopping 5.2% growth rate in Q3, outperforming the average growth under Trump's Maganomics agenda. So what's fueling this growth engine? Under Biden, we've seen a focus on infrastructure, clean energy, and tech advancements. It's like planting seeds for a future forest of economic opportunity. If you're enjoying this economic expedition, I'm curious about your take. How have you felt the effects of economic growth in your life? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe. As we round out today's episode, let's bring it all home. We've reached the numbers, we've charted the growth, and we've seen the ups and downs of the economy under Trump and Biden. But what does this all mean for your wallet? Let's connect the dots and get you ready for the financial future. These economic indicators, cumulative inflation, unemployment rates, mortgage averages, and S&P 500 changes, they're not just abstract figures. They're the heartbeat of your financial health. A low unemployment rate means more job security, while low mortgage rates could mean it's time to buy that dream home. And a thriving S&P 500, that could spell good news for your investments. But as we approach the coming elections, these numbers take on even greater significance. They're the scorecard voters will use to judge the economic performance of the current administration. And they're the crystal ball that might just predict the financial climate of the next. So what should you do? First, stay informed. Knowledge is power, especially when it comes to your finances. Second, plan ahead. Whether it's saving for a rainy day or investing for the long haul, make sure your financial strategy can weather any economic storm. And finally, vote. Your voice matters, not just in the ballot box, but in the marketplace. The policies of the leaders we choose will shape the economy and, in turn, your financial destiny. If you found this episode valuable, don't forget to hit that subscribe button.